What's up, everybody? This is your boy That Black Oni coming to you guys today with another gaming review. If you guys seen the thumbnail, you know what this video is about. It's about that Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Before I go any further into this, what I want to go ahead and do, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. And if you love it, don't forget to subscribe. If you're new to this channel or you're new to seeing any of my videos, hit that sub button. I have plenty of content that you can backlog on and kick back and relax. Besides that, I also want to thank the two people that I actually put my favorite comments that I seen of two people right here that you guys can see right now. It's beautiful. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate both of you. And let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so first of all, I want to start this out the most positive way I possibly can. For one, I really did enjoy this game. Let me throw it out there again. I really did enjoy this game. I love the elements of this game. I loved how they captured Raccoon City and as all of its glory and detail. The elements of this were just beautiful. And what I mean by elements is design. Were beautiful. I like the new areas that they added Resident Evil 2 to this. I love that. The storyline wasn't bad or anything like that, but it could have had a little bit better work to it. Another thing I loved was a lot of the classic things that they brought back from the original one into this. The dodge system. With great timing, you can dodge almost anything. I can't wait to see someone do a full playthrough of a knife challenge. I think that would be awesome. Another thing that I actually really enjoyed a lot more than other things was when you play hard mode, you can go in, fight Nemesis, and every time you defeat him, he drops an item. That's another thing about the classic version that I loved. But honestly, that's where I have to kind of stop it. And the reason why I wanted to do the main highlights of the good things, but there's a lot of negatives. Starting off with the obvious of what everybody knows already when I say this is the gameplay time. The gameplay time was not good for the price that you're paying for this. Now, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from buying this game in no form, shape, or fashion. It's a great game, but it's not worth $60 for the time. Another thing, in which I will have a link down below, confirming that there will not be a mercenary mode, in which Resident Evil 3, for the old head fans, started the mercenary mode. All the other Resident Evils that started off originally were survival. The only mercenary person at that point in Resident Evil 1 and 2 was Hunk, and that's it. Now we have the mercenaries, Carlos, Nikolai, Miguel, and we do not have sadly enough, we won't be getting that. Another thing that I thought could have been better if they would have added a campaign of maybe different ones, kind of like they did in Resident Evil 2 with the what ifs. Would have been awesome to see that. Besides that, I didn't understand why Jill and Carlos' campaign was together. My thing is, if you're trying to go for something new with this and add a new spin on it, why not have Carlos have his setup and have Jill have her own, where their gameplay did interact, but leave it as two separate gameplays so it gave it more playback value. That's another thing that this game is lacking, is playback value. Now, I understand you can unlock weapons and different, 3D figurines and stuff in the game, or I should say models, but in all seriousness, it's lacking on that the most. There should have been a campaign where you could play with Carlos, you could play with Nikolai, you could play with Miguel. It could have been side stories, or it could have been one main story. It does not matter. It should have been in the game. And another problem was that a lot of people don't know is Resistance came out a few months after Resident Evil 2. It was announced. Yes, it was a beta version, but we pretty much still have the same thing, but now we're getting it for free because they couldn't sell it. That's not a good thing at all. That's a very, very poor way of saying, here you guys go. Middle finger to Resident Evil 3 fans, and not okay with that. I understand that it took a year for them to make this. They did a splendid job with what they did. But my thing is, if you know your fans, or you're a fan yourself when it comes to Resident Evil. There should have been no real reason why this game was half of a game or a percentage of a game from what the original one. This felt more like DLC for Resident Evil 2 than it did its own standalone game. And it's sadly enough that Resident Evil 3, the original version, is still my all-time fave and not the new one. I love Resident Evil 2. I love the detail that they put into it. I love that Mr. X could freely roam around an area. I love that. I love that he pretty much paid attention and tracked you. But another problem lies. Mr. X did not do that. That's something they added in. Unlike doing that with Nemesis, who popped up on time clocks, I don't appreciate that. Nemesis always showed up in some of the most uncomfortable places. You remember the bug hive area where you had to use to kill off all the bugs and stuff like that? Those giant ass fleas that infected you with larva eggs in your throat? Yeah, that. Nemesis shows up in there, believe it or not, and it doesn't happen every time. But in the original PS1 version, Nemesis does show up. He can show up just by you shooting off your gun. Now, I don't know if that was part of the original plan when they did that, but it always made you feel more unsettled because you did not know where Nemesis was coming from. Another thing that I did not like about this new Resident Evil 3, once again, awesome game to play, but kind of like a one-shotter. It did not make sense for Nemesis to morph as fast as he did. He did not have a dog form in the original. Unless we're counting towards the end where Jill says, "You want to see stars? I'll show you stars." Then I could understand that part. But putting that in right after he was on fire made zero sense at all. Honestly, it made zero sense. Another part about that is Nemesis wore a limiter suit. And for you Resident Evil fans out there, you understand what I mean when I say a limiter suit. It's a suit that limits their ability to evolve or to mutate into a more stronger monster that shows off their weaknesses. This happens with all tyrant monsters. And for instance, if you played Resident Evil 2, you know that Mr. X no longer had his suit on towards the end of the last battle. He was pretty much shirtless. He didn't have the trench coat on anymore. Nemesis, this is the original design of Nemesis right here, and compared to him wearing a whole garbage bag get up. And it's sad because the limiter suit limits him from transforming and morphing into something way more. That's one reason with the clock tower scene, which was another problem, but we're not gonna really get into that much. Devalue the hype of the battle with that clock tower scene. The clock tower scene was completely wiped out, and all you did was have Nemesis, that's now half tyrant, half werewolf, fight there. And that was a problem within itself, because everybody knows that classical scene. If you played Resident Evil 3, that's where you go to hop on the helicopter. Now, I know a lot of people will argue that, oh, you get on the helicopter on this other part and Nemesis pops up, but he destroys the helicopter. Wasn't as awesome, to be honest with you. Completely went over a lot of people's head when they played it. And the reason why is it was so dumbed down, because that was a glimpse of hope that, hey, I'm finna get out of here. I don't have to fight this final this evil boss. And even the ending with Nikolai was washed out a little bit. Not having a second ending like the original Resident Evil 3 had, where it had 3 different types of endings, good, bad, and happy and sad. They did not have that. You only get that one ending. You get 0 playback value. You get no side missions from what we know of at the making of this video. None of that stuff exists. All we get is a game that no one really paid that much for, Resistance, with a game that you can beat in 3 hours if you cut the skip scenes out of it. That's not good. But my honest rating is this is a decent game. It's just lacking on the stuff coming from a real fan of Resident Evil 3's perspective. And now I know they were going to change stuff up. They did it in Resident Evil 2, but they made that work. Nemesis was supposed to be the big and bad wolf. You had to be concerned if he was going to be coming around every corner. I could understand them blocking him off on certain areas and things like that, but when it came down to it, they stopped him way too much. They cut out a lot of scenes that he could have just roared in and did stuff. They could have added a new element that would have been perfect, or a new way of having Nemesis be just as bad as Mr. X. And my thing was, honestly, Nemesis should have been more scary than Mr. X. I didn't really care that much for Nemesis design, to be honest with you. But in all, the game was fun, but my honest opinion, the game was a rating of a 6.5. And I already know some people are gonna say 6.5 is pretty low, but in all of the detailing that they cut out of this game, it could have been a way longer game. It could have had way more play value just as evenly as Resident Evil 2. They did not do that. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys. I do want to hear your comments on this video. I don't mind chatting it up with you guys. And if you want to know more about Resident Evil 3, or maybe the original one, or maybe you want to get educated a little bit, hit me up down in the comment box down below. I'll be there. This is your boy, That Black Oni. Appreciate you guys for coming out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Signing out in 3, 2, 1.